The Reverend Thomas Merton, an important Catholic mystic and spiritual thinker, was born in 1915 to a New Zealand father and an American mother. The many life situations he encountered in his youth led him to explore religion and spirituality, and eventually devote his life to God by becoming a monk, and later a deacon, at the Abbey of Gethsemane, a part of the Order of Trappists in Kentucky, USA. He also enjoyed living alone in a hermitage in the monastery's wilderness area. During his monastic life, Thomas Merton developed his writing talent by translating religious texts and writing biographies. He also started penning poetry as well as books and articles on topics ranging from spirituality to social justice and peace. One of Merton's most famous statements was, "For me to be a saint means to be myself. Therefore, the problem of sanctity and salvation is in fact the problem of finding out who I am and of discovering my true self." He also said, "We are living in a world that is absolutely transparent and God is shining through it all the time. This is not just a nice story or a fable. It is true." Believing in the equality of all religions, Thomas Merton became deeply interested in Eastern traditions such as Taoism in the last years of his life. He also held lively discourses with His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. Today, the Thomas Merton Center in Kentucky, the International Thomas Merton Society, and others continue to study the life and works of the wise Reverend. Today we read a selection from Thomas Merton's book, Thoughts on the East, presenting his views on the essence of Taoism. Taoism, also known as Taoism, is a Chinese philosophy originating from Lao Tzu's teachings in his classic spiritual text, Tao Te Ching.
Thomas Merton on Taoism.
The way of Tao is to begin with a simple good with which one is endowed by the very fact of existence. Instead of self-conscious cultivation of this good, which vanishes when we look at it and becomes intangible when we try to grasp it, we grow quietly in the humility of a simple, ordinary life. And this way is analogous, at least psychologically, to the Christian life of faith. It is more a matter of believing the good than of seeing it as the fruit of one's effort. The secret of the way proposed by Zhuangzi is therefore not the accumulation of virtue and merit taught by Confucius, but Wu Wei, the non-doing or non-action, which is not intent upon results and is not concerned with consciously laid plans or deliberately organized endeavors. My greatest happiness consists precisely in doing nothing whatever that is calculated to obtain happiness. Perfect joy is to be without joy. If you ask what ought to be done and what ought not to be done on earth to produce happiness, I answer that these questions do not have a fixed and predetermined answer to suit every case. If one is in harmony with Tao, the cosmic Tao, great Tao, the answer will make itself clear when the time comes to act, for then one will act not according to the human, and self-conscious mode of deliberation, but according to the divine and spontaneous mode of Wu Wei, which is the mode of action of Tao itself, and is therefore the source of all good. The true character of Wu Wei is not mere inactivity but perfect action, because it is act without activity. In other words, it is action not carried out independently of heaven and earth, and in conflict with the dynamism of the whole, but in perfect harmony with the whole. It is not mere passivity, but it is action that seems both effortless and spontaneous, because performed rightly, in perfect accordance with our nature and with our place in the scheme of things. It is completely free because there is in it no force and no violence. It is not conditioned or limited by our own individual needs and desires, or even by our own theories and ideas. The key to Chuang's thought is the complementarity of opposites, and this can be seen only when one grasps the central pivot of Tao, which passes squarely through both yes and no, I and not I. Life is a continual development. All beings are in a state of flux. What is impossible today may suddenly become possible tomorrow. What is good and pleasant today may tomorrow become evil and odious. What seems right from one point of view may, when seen from a different aspect, manifest itself as completely wrong. What then should the wise man do? Should he simply remain indifferent and treat right and wrong, good and bad, as if they were all the same? Chuang-Tzu would be the first to deny that they were the same, but in so doing, he would refuse to grasp one or the other and cling to it as to an absolute. When a limited and conditioned view of good is erected to the level of an absolute, it immediately becomes an evil, because it excludes certain complementary elements, which are required if it is to be fully good. To cling to one partial view, one limited and conditioned opinion, and to treat this as the ultimate answer to all questions is simply to obscure the Tao and make oneself obdurate in error. He who grasps the central pivot of Tao is able to watch yes and no pursue their alternating course around the circumference. He retains his perspective and clarity of judgment, so that he knows that yes is yes in the light of the no, which stands over against it. He understands that happiness, when pushed to an extreme, becomes calamity, that beauty, when overdone, becomes ugliness. Clouds become rain and vapor ascends again to become clouds. To insist that the cloud should never turn to rain is to resist the dynamism of Tao.
Perfect joy.
Is there to be found on earth a fullness of joy, or is there no such thing? Is there some way to make life fully worth living, or is this impossible? If there is such a way, how do you go about finding it? What should you try to do? What should you seek to avoid? What should be the goal in which your activity comes to rest? What should you accept? What should you refuse to accept? What should you love? What should you hate? What the world values is money, reputation, long life, achievement. What it counts as joy is health and comfort of body, good food, fine clothes, beautiful things to look at, pleasant music to listen to. What it condemns is lack of money, a low social rank, a reputation for being no good, and an early death. What it considers misfortune is bodily discomfort and labor, no chance to get your fill of good food, not having good clothes to wear, having no way to amuse or delight the eye, no pleasant music to listen to. If people find that they are deprived of these things, they go into a panic or fall into despair. They are so concerned for their life that their anxiety makes life unbearable, even when they have the things they think they want. Their very concern for enjoyment makes them unhappy. For more information about Thomas Merton, please visit merton.org. Cherished viewers, we thank you for your kind presence on today's Words of Wisdom.